Hey, what's up guys? Little man with a big opinion here. Today's video, it's mostly a question. I like to post videos about stuff going on in the news. A lot of it is, something that is a prepping type situation where I just like to point out, here's the problem, this is why you should be prepping, and like I talked about in a video about we were under a boil water notice last week. We had the winter storms last week. And that's all natural disaster stuff that happens all the time. So it's a good reason to be prepping. And then it's kind of died down a little bit right now. But the thought process of a civil war, that tends to be a topic that a lot of people like to talk about, and it gets the blood flowing, and I think it's a really good, like, oh crap, that could happen, I should start doing something about it. So the next, really good, oh crap, I don't want this to be clickbaity, but I was reading an article about the US going to war with China. And they named, 3 major reasons. The first one was, a dispute in the South China Sea over land and what's international waters and what's considered sovereign China. And they named times when they got into it with the Philippines. The big one that they said was the least likely, which I kind of thought was dumb, because I think it's the most likely one, is an issue with Taiwan. I guess it kind of depends on who's in our government at that time, because Taiwan would fall into a very similar category with what's going on between Ukraine and Russia. But our generals and planners and all of those kind of people have consistently war gamed out and are, pushing our military to be ready to deal with that situation. They're not pushing us too hard on too many other options. So I kind of think that's our most likely issue. And a simple answer for prepping is you need to get a bunch of guns and ammo and, start training to fight off the Chinese, because, there's 5 times as many as them as there are us. And, it's going to be like a Red Dawn situation kind of thing. I really don't see that happening, honestly. I think our military capabilities and that of our allies that would potentially help us out, I don't see physical Chinese troops on U.S. soil. Maybe give it 20 years and they've built up that capability to be able to conduct that kind of warfare. But, I mean, we're talking a massive amount of infrastructure to build the equipment to sustain something like that. I mean, it took us almost 2 years of planning just to make D-Day happen for something that was, barely in the triple digits on miles apart. And in some parts of that planning, it almost didn't work out, and they missed a bunch of timetables. And if the Germans had been better prepared, not so worn down by the Russians, it might not have happened at all. That was 180, it's either 187 or 157,000 men. For something like that to work in the U.S., I mean, we're talking a few million. We're talking dealing with Alaska and Hawaii. And then, getting onto the U.S. So I wouldn't be so worried about, I don't have, the firearms and the capability to fight off a Chinese platoon or whatever. I would be more worried about, the new advances. And it would help out in the idea of total war, but it's not, bullets flying at you. It's a critical piece of infrastructure gets hacked or sabotaged, and now 80,000 people don't have power for the foreseeable future. It's a water purification source, getting turned on backwards. And so now you having, the water mixing up and contaminating and things like that. It is, releasing something that will damage crops or food production. It is, neutralizing allies that send critical components that help out with our infrastructure. And I think that's why I'm okay with, not getting too political. I like the idea of more stuff being built in the U.S. because, did you ever played Hearts of Iron? You build your factories in your country. You only have to worry about your stuff getting, blown up or captured. If you build your stuff somewhere else, you now have to worry about your physical people and, are your transport ships bringing in this raw material or this component to make something and, keep things going round. And the biggest thing, which falls into, trying to become as self-sufficient as possible, is I don't think anyone in the U.S. is wholeheartedly ready to do any sort of rationing, any sort of, I'm going to make this minor sacrifice, which for some people it might seem like a major thing, to help out with this war effort. Like, I really like honey roasted almonds. A lot of them are grown in California. We bring stuff in like that from other countries. Almond trees consume massive amounts of water. We don't need almonds to survive. It's not the end of the world. If I was in charge of something, I would divert resources from that towards putting something more efficient. Something that's give us a higher bang for our buck, more calories. I think that's kind of why I like to prep these. We got an expiration date, July 16th, 2027. I think I bought these ones 3 or 4 months ago. I don't have the largest supply of almonds because they're expensive. They don't quite hit, cost to calorie. It's not totally worth it. They're kind of bulky and take up space. But what I've seen with the prepping is I'm trying to keep myself as close to normal as possible. We have about 2 months worth of beef stored in our deep freezer. If that ever turned into an issue, I would want things fixed very, very quickly. Because when we run out of beef, I have to find a new way to source it. It might be more expensive. And things don't become normal. And that's when I start to, maybe have a little bit of anxiety or some panic. Like the stuff going on with eggs right now. That has nothing to do with any other country. Except for, there's a flu problem. I think we kind of jumped the gun on killing as many of the chickens as we did. Maybe we could have had a better testing process to save the ones that didn't get sick, put them in a different spot. But at least what I've seen in the news is, so when you kill off 100 million chickens, your egg production, I think they said it was like 40% of the eggs produced in the U.S. came from a lot of these chickens. That's why the cost went from like $4 to $10 pretty quickly. To keep myself as close to normal as possible, I have built that relationship with coworkers, and I get a dozen eggs a week. Sometimes we can eat more, so there's a little bit of rationing going on because I don't want to pay the egg prices right now. But we have kept ourselves near normal through bartering. I got a bag of chicken feed, and it has also, and gave it to the coworker. So for the rest of this school year, we're going to end up paying about $1 uh, for a dozen eggs, at a time. It's a lot less than we were paying previously. It has jump started my plans to say, this is a problem. We're going to have our own chickens in September. In about 2 months, she's going to start, turning the eggs into chickens for us. And that way we don't even have to wait for the process of, feeding and taking care of them and wait until they can start laying eggs. Once we're at that point, we're great. We're golden. Where we're at, we probably won't get a rooster. But she has a, self-sufficient system that when they quit laying eggs, we can turn them into chicken nuggets. They're not the best chicken nuggets because meat birds are better for that. We might turn them into food for the animals. But we will get a resupply on that. And that's building relationships and bartering. That's the kind of stuff that I see as more of an issue with China. Is messing with, it's not going to be taking and holding this city, this army duking it out with this army. That stuff's still going to happen. But it's going to happen thousands of miles away. And, even if we see a little bit of that stuff in the States, I don't think all of your stuff should go into, I'm gonna fight them off. I think it would take, and I'm not saying that, they're different allies, considering we're talking about sending F-35s to India, so that relationship is going up. But I think it would take something like China, India, Russia, and, a handful of other countries if we're really going to see, the impact like you see in movies here in the States. So that's on the boring prepping. That's I'm stocking rice and beans and oats and corn, and I've got my canned vegetables and my fruits, and I'm, putting time into meat rabbits or other livestock, and I'm starting a garden. Either way it goes, you should still probably try to get fit and, be capable of doing those things. Because I think it was the art of war that they say it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So yes, you should continue to put effort into becoming the most violent and capable person that you can be. And you just need to know when to use it. Some of the predictions say they could invade Taiwan in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's early 30s for me. If you're watching this video, that can kind of be your sign to prepare. I'm not saying, there's never a strict deadline on any of this because we don't know. I made a video several years ago when the Ukraine stuff first happened, and I kind of made the comment that this could be a regional conflict that 100 years from now, the historians are saying this is the, first part of World War III that, that made it turn into a global conflict. We could say the same thing about the civil war going on in Syria. That's been going on 14 years. I am teaching kids history that conflict has been going on longer than they've been alive. India and China, they have border clashes. We could see something else spark up in Europe. Something could happen in Africa. I don't see a lot of new stuff coming out of Africa. A lot of it's regional, but all of this could connect in some way, and me talking about these videos can hopefully help. And, you also just need to pay attention to the news. I don't cover everything. I don't have time to cover everything. I look at what I see, and if it's important towards prepping, I'll make a video about it. So, in the comment section down below, let me know your thoughts. Is there anything else spicy going on that I should probably know about? Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content, and share it with your friends and family. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.